Hi, folks. So today we have with us James from LightEdge. And LightEdge, he's going to talk about his experience implementing OKRs with Profit.co. And LightEdge is, it's a pretty interesting business, right? So they are a data center and managed services provider, right? And that's a business which is, in the cutting edge of transformation, digital transformation, right? And it comes with quite a lot of challenges, when it comes to strategy execution, right? The services could be complex. The technology proceeds in blazing speed, blazing fast, right? And security and compliance requirements are, very important, and the regulatory landscape can be pretty complex, right? So it's a great company in a fairly complex business from our observation, right? So we're really happy that James is here with us to share their experience, about using OKRs and Profit.co, right? So thank you very much, James, for joining us today from Austin, Texas. Right? Maybe we can start by, just introducing yourself, the company, and your role in life. That would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, appreciate you having me on. Really excited to talk about this. Like you said, my name is James. I work for LightEdge. I've been at the company for a little over 2 years now. I initially came in on the operations side of the house. I was a project manager within our service delivery department. And you kind of mentioned transformation. There's a lot of great things changing with the company as far as acquisitions over the last year or two. And that actually put me in my role today as an integrations project manager. So we're a cloud and data center company, initially based out of Des Moines, Iowa. We've been in business for over 20 years, really focusing in on sophisticated cloud services to our clients. And one of the things has kind of taken place over the years is we've expanded our portfolio specifically with our data centers across the country. So what started in the Midwest out of Des Moines, Omaha, Kansas City has now expanded into Austin, Texas, Raleigh, North Carolina, and most recently San Diego and Phoenix. And one of the things that our leadership wanted to focus on when we made these extensions into other markets was really start to hone in, our priorities and our focuses on critical things that we were working on. As a company, we've been very engineering heavy and very good at solving problems kind of in smaller facets, or, in other words, we've been really good at kind of identifying the shiny thing and getting it done. But as we've continued to expand as a company, one of the things that we wanted to focus on was how can we improve that visibility to all different departments and really make sure that we're all, working towards kind of the same things, making sure that, as a team, we're working more so as a team. And that was one of the things that drew us to OKRs as a methodology and a program, was creating visibility, but also allowing people to be more collaborative in their approach of what we're working on. And Profit really fit in as an incredible tool and has been, really important to how we've rolled this out and ultimately have made this, an ongoing program within LightEdge.
Great. That's a great backdrop. So what you are saying is that the primary motivation for implementing OKRs in LightEdge is that, you wanted, or the management wanted, the entire organization, the entire team to work in a very aligned manner, right? I mean, that's pretty much your primary driver, right? So once you decided, to implement OKRs, right? How long back was it, and how has the journey been so far?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we just completed, I believe, our third quarter, really as OKRs as a program is rolled out, but it's probably coming up on a year of really starting to get the ball rolling. One of the things that kind of kicked us off was a lot of the upper leadership and managers within the company read the book, Measure What Matters. And that was kind of a foundational education piece for a lot of us of, okay, what is OKRs? What does it do? What are some good examples of, previously successful companies that have kind of built their success off of this platform? From there, it was, how can we hit the ground running as quickly as possible? And we tried to pull as many resources as we could. We used kind of some third-party coaching, and honestly, we used a lot of the kind of foundational elements of Profit to help kind of streamline the implementation of this, because we were learning it on the fly. And so for a lot of people that were just getting introduced to it, having a tool that had these templates built in and, allowed you to kind of get some instruction as we were putting these together for the first time was really, really important. And so every quarter we've seen, pretty significant improvement in terms of, I would say, engagement and overall kind of our percentage of things getting accomplished. So every quarter since the rollout's been great. Hopefully from, once we wrap up this Q4 and move on to the next year, it's going to continue to improve from there.
Excellent. And so far, over these 3 quarters, right, what do you think have been the challenges with respect to OKR implementation? Have there been any challenges with respect to, let's say, employee adoption, or technology or process? Right? Have there been any challenges that you can think of?
Sorry, I cut you. I lost you for a quick second. Could you repeat that question?
Okay, sorry. So I was asking, over the 3 quarters in your OKR journey, right? Mm-hmm. What have been the significant challenges? Have there been any challenges, right? Either with respect to employee adoption or, the tool or technology or process. What has been the experience for LightEdge?
Yeah, well, I think one of the bigger challenges, and I think this usually goes with rolling out anything new that requires somewhat of a culture shift, is just early adoption, especially from our key players up top. And I will say that was one of the great things that we had was buy-in from our C-suite team early on, and they were one of the big stakeholders to wanting to roll this out. But a big part of it is just getting people to consistently go into the tool, make sure that they're keeping everything up to date, and really buy into this methodology. Want to go in and check weekly, monthly, quarterly to make sure that their OKRs are being successful. I would say, fortunately, it didn't take a whole lot of time to get the ball rolling, but early on, you still have to go through those hurdles of, okay, how can we get everybody to actually believe in what this is? And I think having the tool there, part of that, because it gave you a plug and play solution right off the bat. It just made kind of the early phases that much easier. You had the visibility to the success that you were having. And because we were tying this into like the most critical objectives within the company, it wasn't something that people could really, take for granted necessarily. So I would say that was definitely the cultural shift of, here's a methodology that we're going to roll out, had its ups and downs, but, the adoption has been great and it continues to improve.
That's great. Excellent. And did you have some specific roles, while you started this implementation, people who were responsible for the OKR program, and who provided the executive sponsorship for this? Yeah, so there was the big players early on. Jeff Springborn, who is our Chief Operating Officer, our COO and President, was really crucial in that. He was a big adopter along with Jim Masterson, our CEO, but he was really imperative to kind of helping me step in as he calls it, our OKR shepherd, but kind of as the program manager, pulling in some resources from, like I said, some OKR coaching, and he really bought in and dug in deep. He's a guy that's got a million things going on, but him adopting this as significantly as he did, I think was a really important, I would say, a really important piece to why this, got off the ground as successfully as it did. Going down into the nitty gritty of critiquing OKRs and making sure that there's alignment with what the company wants to do, providing solutions and suggestions as someone who knows the business so well. That was really important. And without it, I don't think we would have been able to be nearly as far along as we are. And he continues to do that. But the nice thing is because we did a lot of that heavy lifting up front, we're in a place now where it can run a little bit more on autopilot. People, from a manager level really know what to expect quarterly. That buy-in from, some of your upper leadership, I think is, been a really key contributor to our success. That's great. And, the executive sponsorship from the Chief Operating Officer, I think that's great. And OKR Shepherd is a pretty nice name for the program owner. I really like it, and I'm going to use it.
Yeah, I don't know if that's used elsewhere, but that's definitely the LightEdge brand is OKR Shepherd.
I'm hearing it for the first time, and it's pretty creative. Yeah. Great. And when once you decided 3 quarters back that you wanted to implement OKRs, did you decide, about having a tool or software for OKRs right at that time, or did you practice OKRs without a tool, maybe manual
No, what
spreadsheets?
we wanted to use a tool off the bat to kind of eliminate some of the manual pieces of it. That was kind of ongoing research as we were learning about it. It was definitely parallel path of, okay, let's kind of absorb this methodology, learn everything we can about it, and at the same time figure out, okay, in practice, how would we actually execute on this? So the tool was always a piece, and thankfully, we were able to roll it out at the same time. I think it would have been a much more challenging endeavor to kind of fat finger this one into a spreadsheet or really control it all manually, and try and roll it out and have it be successful.
Great, thanks. And how was the selection process? How did you choose Profit.co? Did you consider other products? What were your evaluation criteria? And how did you end up with Profit.co, James?
Yeah, I kind of started from scratch. I didn't know, we didn't really have, I would say, any like leading solutions at our fingertips. I think it was Microsoft, I want to say Viva might have been something that had been considered early on, but a lot of it was, let's, just do a Google search and see, what have other people done, and had success with it. And right off the bat, Profit was one of those first things that popped up and had, so many great success stories and great reviews. It kind of made it, an easy choice from the get-go. And after kind of sampling, Profit along with a couple others, it was pretty easy to make that decision that Profit was going to be one that we could roll out very simply. It was going to integrate well with our team, and a lot of the features pertaining to generating reports and dashboards kind of automatically. To me, that was the deciding factor of, okay, this is something that's going to be great not only for the person running this program, but just for our users as well.
Great, sure. And what was the implementation and onboarding experience with Profit.co, James?
So it started with the first quarter that we rolled out OKRs. Like I said, we had kind of a third-party OKR coach, and so we really spent a lot of time going through the process of, okay, what does an objective entail? How do we write effective key results? We really wanted to make sure that the learning part of it was, at the core of what we were trying to do early on. So a lot of time early on was just spent on kind of bringing up all of our leadership up to speed to make sure that they were comfortable with the OKRs. After that, a lot of it came down to me becoming a super user of the Profit tool, making sure that I understood it from every detail so that if there were issues or if we wanted to roll in new users, I was able to kind of step in and help somebody along the way. And that's kind of how, it continued from Q1 into Q2 and has slowly eased off the gas as people have been brought up to speed, is, really doing a lot of the educational piece. Like I mentioned, we didn't have any kind of go-to OKR expert at the time. We were all kind of learning it on the fly. And so a lot of people had to kind of step up and kind of educate themselves. And fortunately, having a tool there that was as easy to use made made our lives that much easier, having some kind of backbone that we could rely on.
Okay, great, thanks. Now, 3 quarters along, right, you've been into OKRs. In terms of, and your original goal was, really to have better alignment, right, across the company. Right. So if I ask you today, what has been the impact of OKRs, right, on LightEdge? What sort of benefits that you have realized, qualitative, quantitative, right? How would you answer that, James?
Honestly, I think a big part of it is it's allowed us to benchmark so much. Like I said, we're a strong engineering team in the sense that we can solve a lot of problems. But one of the things that a lot of our initiatives have been kind of tailored towards as we continue to grow is just taking the time to establish benchmarks. And I think that's been one of the best success stories that we've had. It really, I don't think I have a great number to quantify necessarily, because we're in that phase of figuring out, what's worth tracking across the business outside of, sales and revenue and a couple operations metrics. But it's given us so much more visibility and collaboration that I don't think we've done as great a job in the past. There's been a lot of, I'll put it this way. We've acquired several different companies that now make up LightEdge, and there's definitely, subcultures that have existed within those different organizations and different ways of doing things. And one thing that this has allowed us to do is kind of break down those barriers a little bit, so everybody can see what they're working on and why. And that level of visibility has allowed us to kind of empower employees and managers and leaders to step up and kind of ask more questions, kind of get the thumbs up on, what direction that we're going in. And I think that's saved a lot of efforts and really kind of narrowed down the focus of what we're trying to do, day to day, quarter to quarter, in a way that we haven't, that we weren't able to previously.
Sure. And I think you really summed it up quite beautifully, right? When LightEdge has been acquiring, quite a few companies, and I think the subcultures which have existed, right, in all those companies, integrating them and really functioning as one team, right? I mean, that's quite a huge challenge. And what you're saying is that OKRs has played an important role, right, in really addressing that particular challenge, right? So that's quite significant. Now, what next, right, in terms of your future plans with OKRs and, let's say, using Profit.co? How do you really plan to, scale up, or what are your plans for that? Or do you plan consolidation?
That's an awesome question, and that's something that we're reviewing right now. We've done a good job of expanding this to our leadership team. Every department has an OKR representative. Every department has their OKRs for the quarter, and we've done a great job of integrating that so that each quarter we can see at a high level what everybody's doing. We've started to guinea pig a couple where, we're starting to cascade this down, not just from your top operations leadership, but now into some of the sub departments as well. And we'd like for it to ultimately integrate to where, people can kind of self-manage a lot of things within Profit, whether it's personal goals that they're trying to set, or just ultimately, setting OKRs at kind of the tier 2 and tier 3 level beneath, our top level leadership. So we've been rolling that out so far. We've had a lot of great success with it. I think ultimately, that may require bringing on another super user to kind of help with the training and help roll things out. Just as right now we've got 20 to 25 users, but if that all of a sudden extends down to, and exponentially, right, 50, 100, 150, that's a lot harder for one person to start to manage the training and kind of the oversight. And so we just want to make sure that, we kind of take our time with it. That's definitely, I think, the LightEdge approach in a lot of different ways. But we absolutely view this as something that we can continue to expand across the company and, leverage its abilities outside of just kind of this top heavy, objective organization.
Sure. We just have a couple of minutes, so probably the last two questions. One,
sure.
James, based on the experiences that you have gained over in the last 3 quarters, right? If you are, let's say, either if you're going to be advising somebody else who's going to be just embarking on an OKR program, or let's say, you're magically doing time travel going back 3 quarters ago, right? If you're going to redo this again, what would be, your advice, actually?
No, that's a great question. I think expect it to be a little messy. And this is good. This was actually advice that we got when we kicked this off, was don't expect to have this ready in the first quarter or maybe in the second quarter. It's going to take some time for people to buy in and to get the hang of it. I think a lot of it is just doing a lot of the legwork up front. Make sure that your team understands what objectives and key results are for, so that they write them effectively, and that ultimately we can leverage those in the best way possible. I think it's very easy to just kind of throw some ideas together and call it an OKR, but if you're not tracking something that's worthwhile, that just, could be a lot of wasted effort. And, we had examples of those, but you have to go through the experience of kind of experimenting and challenging people to put in their best foot to learn and write these in an effective way. So definitely putting down the legwork to understand OKRs at the foundation. And then the other thing, I think you really have to make sure that, you know, your leadership is bought in and is participating. You know, fortunately we had that, and that was really important, because at the end of the day, it made my life a lot easier to be able to lean on them to kind of help maybe nudge certain people in a direction if we were kind of falling back on track a little bit. But also they just set the tone and they set the standard. And I think that's what, you know, making any cultural change is about. So I think those two things would definitely be the advice that I'd pass along. And, you know, fortunately we had that, but, you know, obviously you could always look back and try and nitpick and find ways to do it better.
Sure. And probably the last question for people who are, you know, looking at technology selection, right? And you also mentioned that you were, you know, looking at multiple products in, you know, a few products, Google search, you know, including Microsoft Viva. You know, for people who are doing technology search, what would be your advice? You know, how should they evaluate? You know, how should they choose the right tool? What would be your suggestion on that?
Yeah, don't be afraid to try it as like a, you know, go through the trial period. I mean, you kind of have to case study it on your own front to make sure that the way that your company operates and the way that you are kind of passing along this information, you can't really know whether or not the tool is built right for you until you try it. And for profit, you know, a huge part of what we were looking for was the reporting features. You know, being able to easily implement these, but also at the click of a button, pull that information and share it to somebody else to have that accessible. But then also to have the ability to interact with, you know, Teams or any other platform that we use in-house. So I think doing your due diligence to actually test something out, not just find something that looks pretty from a UI perspective, you know, is really important. And fortunately, you know, that's what struck our chord and made us lead towards profit. Was it just worked at the end of the day for what we were trying to do.
Sure. Great. So thank you very much, James. We really appreciate you taking the time, you know, sharing your very insightful experiences on, you know, your journey over the last 3 quarters, you know, technology selection and advice for folks who are going to be implementing OKRs. We really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.